After their helicopter crashes during an expedition, a young man finds a small dinosaur and has to use his new partner's skills to escape from the terrible aquatic dino Pliosaurus. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, The Dinosaur Project, from 2012. In the jungles of the Republic of Congo, a group of British scientists disappeared while on an expedition. The news has spread around the world, as the causes of the disappearance are still an enigma. In the midst of the search for survivors, a rescue group finds the backpack of one of the members in a lake. The reason for the expedition was new evidence found by local residents indicating the existence of a creature known as the river blocker. Scientists believed that it could be one of the last surviving dinosaurs on Earth, and so the government funded its search. The group called together for the expedition was led by Jonathan Merchant, an explorer who had encountered several extinct species in the past. Along with the group, a TV crew accompanied them to record this incredible discovery, just in case it was true. Finally, when the day of the trip arrived, Jonathan was on the phone, trying to convince his ex-wife to look after their teenage son, Luke, during his time away. However, the two don't reach an agreement and the adventurer decides to take his son along for part of the journey. Hours later, the two arrive at the airport, where Luke records everything with his camera and begins to interview the other members of the expedition. The first to arrive is Liz, the group's doctor, who immediately catches Luke's eye because of her beauty. However, when the young man gets too carried away with the filming, it's not long before his father stops the recording and tells him to behave. After the plane trip, Jonathan and his son arrive in a hotel room, where the young man shows them the filming equipment he has bought. However, the explorer tells him that his son is not going on the expedition and that he will be returning home with his aunt. More hours pass and Jonathan and his team arrive in the Republic of Congo, where they are met by Amara. She works for the country's environmental agency and will accompany the expedition to ensure their safety in the jungle, as well as that of the forest itself. The second member of the group, Charlie, is also introduced on camera, as Jonathan's right-hand man and financier for all their expeditions. With the whole team assembled, they leave by helicopter for the jungle, in search of the place where the river blocker was found. According to Jonathan's research, this creature could be a descendant of two dinosaur species, the Plesiosaurus or the Pliosaurus. The Plesiosaurus was a peaceful animal, but the Pliosaurus was a ferocious creature, so Jonathan can only hope that the creature is not of that species. The conversation between the team continues, until they hear a noise coming from the cargo hold. When he goes to investigate, Jonathan discovers that Luke had sneaked in with the luggage and scolds him in front of everyone for disobeying him. To make matters worse, he can't take the young man back because they've already passed the point of no return and there's only enough fuel to land. So Luke becomes another member of the expedition and leaves one of his cameras in the cabin to record the entire journey. Minutes later, the group approaches the landing site and notices that strange birds are flying over the forest. However, they soon realize that these are no ordinary birds and one of them ends up flying too close to the helicopter and crashing into the propeller. As a result, the helicopter begins to lose control and crashes rapidly into the jungle. Although they manage to land, the pilot of the ship doesn't survive the crash and the helicopter is covered in flames. The whole team rushes off the ship, taking what they can of their luggage and equipment. However, Luke remembers the camera he left in the cabin and goes to get it, even though his father insists he doesn't go. The young man finally picks up his camera and his father takes him away from the helicopter, which, seconds later, ends up exploding in flames. Faced with yet another thoughtless act by his son, Jonathan orders him to obey him from now on and not to put anyone's life at risk, including his own. Luke promises to do this, and so the expedition sets off through the forest in search of a landing place. Amara becomes their guide through the jungle and points out that the right way is across the river. The group then follows her lead, but one of the cameramen, called Pete, thinks he hears a noise, but finds nothing around the trees. So they continue walking through the dense forest, until they come across a kind of camp, apparently abandoned. Inspecting one of the huts, Jonathan sees bloodstains scattered between the walls. He believes that this may have been caused by a tribal dispute, but as it is getting close to dark, they have no choice but to take shelter in the camp. While the others gather wood for the fire and other supplies, Luke places a camera with a motion sensor at the entrance to the hut. This impresses everyone, including Liz, but her father is still furious that he has come to the expedition in hiding. When evening came, the group got together for a meal before bed and to check their equipment. Unfortunately, the helicopter's radio was destroyed and all that was left was a cell phone with a satellite connection, but this was also damaged in the crash. Liz then suggests that Luke fix the cell phone, since he has more experience with technology. Jonathan agrees with the idea, and so they all decide to rest until daybreak so that they can continue through the forest. During the early hours of the morning, Luke's camera records everything outside the hut, until strange winged creatures start passing in front of it. The noise wakes up the whole group, and when they look through the young man's tablet, what they see are not ordinary animals, but dinosaurs of the pteranodon species. The situation only gets worse when Charlie makes a noise inside and the creatures start attacking the cabin. One of them manages to break through the roof and attacks Liz's face, forcing everyone to flee as quickly as possible. During the escape, Liz ends up falling behind and one of the pterodons manages to grab her and knocks her to the ground. Jonathan runs to save the girl, while the rest of the team continue to flee and find 2 boats near the lake. The team quickly gets into the boats and, when Jonathan returns, he jumps into one of them and everyone flees. The pterodons land on the shore and let the group continue along the lake, but tragically, Jonathan was unable to save Liz, who became another victim of the expedition. The day dawns and the group tries to think of a way to escape. Luke continues to record everything on camera, but can't contain his sadness at Liz's perishment and the distance between him and his father. However, while alone in the second dinghy, Jonathan goes over and tries to comfort his son. The two of them talk and Luke tries to fix his cell phone so they can call for help, but soon they come across several animals passing through the trees in the distance. Something also seems to be approaching them on the lake and starts rocking the boats. The group picks up the oars and tries to get back to dry land, but one of the boats ends up overturned in the river and the other has a piece of its hull broken off. Luckily, they all manage to stop off the coast of an island and now they have to repair the boats and camp nearby. At dusk, while they are having a meal in front of the fire, Amara reveals that there have been increasing reports of unknown creatures attacking the area. Many locals went to the place where they came from, known as the Passage, but everyone who dared to go never returned. Luke wants to know more about the story, but the conversation is soon interrupted when a small dinosaur of the Lesothosaurus species appears in front of everyone. More of them surround the group, but they seem to be peaceful and even docile. Luke then takes some of the chocolates he's brought and tries to give them to one of them who, at first, doesn't trust him very much, but soon gives in and accepts the sweets. The young man even manages to pet the dinosaur, but in return it ends up throwing a liquid in Luke's face. After that, the Lesothosaurus takes off across the lake, along with others of its kind, leaving the camp behind. Another day passes and Luke finds the little dinosaurs playing in the water. Alongside them is the dinosaur that the young man interacted with last night and he decides to call him Crypto. After the game, Luke, together with Charlie and Pete, takes the opportunity to lure the little dinosaur and puts one of their cameras around its neck. Soon afterwards, Crypto seems to hear a call from far away and runs towards the lake, along with the other Lesothosaurus. Seconds later, the young man activates his tablet and manages to record Crypto's entire journey, thanks to his water-resistant camera. They manage to observe everything the little dinosaur sees, until he crosses a cave and the camera's signal is lost. This makes Charlie furious, as he believed he could see everything through the camera and seems to have become increasingly obsessed with dinosaurs. He even suggests that the group take the boat to the cave, but Amara insists that they need to leave that island as soon as possible. Jonathan agrees with her, but Charlie thinks it will all be for nothing if they leave. He argues that they need to continue with the mission, because only then will they receive all the recognition for discovering that dinosaurs didn't go extinct. The argument becomes increasingly heated and Luke decides to side with Charlie, supporting his decision to continue the search for the dinosaurs. This ends up affecting the relationship between the young man and his father, who just wants to get his son back to safety. Even so, the two fail to reach an agreement and, with the boats repaired, the group heads back out to river. Luke and Charlie are on one of the boats and, at that moment, the camera signal returns and they are able to follow Crypto via the tablet. The little dinosaur begins to walk along a hunting trail, which passes a totem pole and then a cave that leads to another part of the forest. At the end of the recording, Crypto lies down on the ground and the camera catches the moment when 2 huge dinosaur legs appear. Thanks to this transmission, Charlie and Luke now know where the passage mentioned by Amara is, which leads to the home of the dinosaurs. The young man is excited about this and wants to tell his father what he's discovered, but Charlie convinces him that it's best to keep everything secret for the time being. In exchange for this favor, he guarantees Luke an official place on the expedition team and the young man accepts without a second thought. The group then continues along the river, but Jonathan sees a stretch of rough water ahead and warns everyone to hold on. As he had feared, as soon as the boats pass by, the current gets stronger and the group has trouble keeping the boats balanced. At the same time, water begins to enter the boats, forcing the group to scoop it out with buckets to prevent them from sinking. Despite the difficulties, Jonathan manages to row his boat to the end of the stretch, but the movement of the water causes the rope between the boats to break. As a result, Luke and Charlie are left behind and their boat ends up in the same cave that Crypto had entered. The camera attached to the dinghy continues to record everything, and Luke tries to keep the boat steady, with Charlie's help. Minutes later, they manage to cross to the other side of the cave, where they see a huge crevice that leads to a secret passage in the middle of the forest. Charlie inspects the water and notices that it is very cold, indicating that they are in a very deep river. In addition to this problem, the two of them need to use their hands in order to take the boat out, as the oars were in Jonathan's boat. Fearful of what might lie beneath the water, Luke struggles to move the boat forward, until he hears a familiar cry in the distance. The voice is that of his father, who has returned with the boat to the cave and gone through it to find his son. Luke is surprised to see his father's efforts to help him, and Jonathan hugs him, with an expression of relief on his face. After this reunion, Jonathan asks how they ended up separated, and Charlie says that the rope broke because of the rough river. Jonathan doesn't seem to be convinced by this, but now they have to continue on through the huge crevasse and look for a way out. They set off, but soon feel that the boats have hit a submerged rock or something even worse. The group soon stops rowing the boats and waits in silence until they find out what's going on. Finally, the huge river blocker reveals itself, and, looking closely at it, Jonathan comes to the conclusion that it is a plesiosaur. He is relieved to see that it is a peaceful species, but the creature soon scurries away, as if frightened by something. To everyone's misfortune, the next thing to appear is the Pliosaurus, a voracious predator that doesn't just feed on fish. With a single leap, he swallows one of the cameramen filming the Plesiosaurus and causes the boats to capsize with his strength. As a result, Luke, Jonathan and the rest of the team fall into the water, with the camera stuck in the young man's shirt recording the whole terrifying moment. After submerging himself in the water, Luke tries to reach his father, but the Pliosaur passes between them and a huge trail of blood covers the water. Luke is desperate to believe that his father has been eliminated by the dinosaur, but before he can prove it, Charlie reaches the young man and pulls him out of the water. Luke shouts for his father, but there is no time to lose and they need to find a safe place in the forest. After stopping for a while to rest, the young man goes back to working on his cell phone, as it is now his only hope of survival. Finally, after fixing the wiring and replacing the battery, Luke manages to reactivate his cell phone and calls Charlie. The guy appears out of nowhere in front of the young man and says he's finally found the passage that leads to the home of the dinosaurs. Luke follows him through the forest until he finds the totem and then the fissure that leads to the cave where Crypto entered. The two of them gather around it and the young man shows Charlie that he has managed to fix the cell phone and that they can now call for help. Charlie congratulates him on this, but in an unexpected move, he grabs his cell phone and pushes Luke into the fissure. Inside, Luke tries to hold on to the walls of the cave, but is pulled hard by the current of the water. Finally, Luke manages to hold onto a wall of the cave, but in front of him, a guy appears, exploring the place with a flashlight in his hand. Fearing it might be Charlie, the young man sinks into the water and tries to swim away. Sometime later, he finally manages to get out of the cave and crosses the passage to the dinosaur's lair. Not knowing what to do or where to go, Luke starts recording himself on camera, giving his location and everything that has happened up to that point. He hopes that someone will see his recording and help him get out of there, although his hopes are slim. But in another part of the forest, one of the cameras shows that Pete, Amara and Jonathan have survived the Pliosaur attack and are looking for Luke. Amara says she saw him and Charlie heading for the pass and Jonathan decides to follow the same path to find him. However, she refuses and decides to return to the valley alone, leaving only Jonathan and Pete to rescue the young man. Back at the pass, Luke continues recording and apologizes to his father for invading the expedition, but thanks him for the time they spent together. However, he is soon interrupted when he hears a noise in the middle of the forest and grabs a piece of tree to defend himself. Fortunately, it's Crypto who turns up, recognizes his friend and follows him through the forest. Halfway through, the two come across the pterodons again and are forced to flee. However, the dinosaurs are even bigger than before and begin to surround the young man in the middle of the forest. Luke just waits for his fate, but suddenly Pete appears in front of him and uses his sound equipment to drive the creatures away. Soon afterwards, Jonathan also appears and is reunited with his son, but the danger isn't over yet. The two decide to look for a safer route, but Pete is enraged by the perishment of his colleagues and runs through the forest to take revenge on the dinosaurs. One by one, he attacks the pterodons, but when he leaves the forest and goes out into the open, the man comes across a pack of them waiting for him. Seeing that he has nowhere to run, Pete tries to fight them off, but the last images from his camera show that he too has been eliminated by the monsters. Meanwhile, Jonathan looks for a path leading down into the valley and tries to find traces of Charlie. Luke then reveals that his father's colleague tried to eliminate him when he pushed him into the passage and even took the cell phone he had fixed. Jonathan is devastated to hear this, but soon realizes that Charlie had cut the rope to the boats on purpose. He decides to go after his former colleague to get the communicator back, even if he has to take it from him by force. The two of them follow Charlie's trail, who soon realizes their presence and hides in the forest. The pair continue to follow the trail, which leads them to a huge gorge, but there is no sign of Charlie anywhere. Seconds later, Jonathan hears a strange noise and looks up to see a rockfall coming towards them. Luke manages to dodge, but his father is pushed by the rocks and narrowly manages to hold on to the edge of the cliff. The young man tries to help him, but when he looks up, he sees that it was Charlie who caused the collapse. The villain prepares to throw more stones, so Jonathan tells his son to get out of there and asks him never to forget how much he loves him. Luke tries to pull his father up, but Jonathan can't resist and ends up falling off the cliff. The young man has no time to mourn this tragic loss, as Charlie is still after him and Luke is forced to flee. The young man hides again in the middle of the forest, with Charlie shouting his name while holding a makeshift weapon in his hand. Luke tries to sneak out through the trees, and on the way, he meets Crypto again, who takes him to safety. Once there, Luke finds the camera that was attached to his dinosaur friend's neck and discovers that this is his nest. Shortly afterwards, Charlie finds him there and prepares to eliminate the young man, as he cannot leave any trace of his crimes behind. Crypto appears and tries to protect the young man, but Charlie knocks the little dinosaur away with a single kick. Then it's Luke's turn to try to take him on, but the guy easily knocks him to the ground and says he doesn't intend to share the profits from this discovery with anyone else. Crypto returns to the scene and once again releases a liquid into the young man's face. Despite this strange attitude, Luke understands that the dinosaur did this to protect him, because seconds later, Crypto's parents appear, two huge Lithothosaurus. The dinosaurs don't attack Luke when they smell his baby thanks to his saliva. However, to Charlie's misfortune, they don't smell it on him and, without hesitation, they bite the man's neck and take him away. Luke takes this opportunity to flee the place and, before trying to cross the valley once again, he records one last video on his camera. The young man records a wide shot of the dinosaur's home to prove their existence and says he will go in search of a way out of the forest, with the help of Crypto. Finally, he threw his backpack in the middle of a waterfall that would later be found by the rescue group in the middle of the sea. Inside, they found all the video recordings showing everything that had happened on the expedition, known as the Dinosaur Project. In another recording on Luke's camera, he appears to be talking to someone about having fixed his cell phone once again. It seems that he was standing next to his father, who survived the fall and was found by his son in the middle of the forest. The two then continue to fight for survival in the dinosaur kingdom, while hoping that rescue can get them out of this wild place. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.